Today's video is a little bit different. I know it's kind of been leaning towards this, and I talked to a lot of creators. Just got back from Next, and I want to give my thoughts a little bit on Warzone specifically. I have a lot to say about Black Ops 7, and that's going to be in a different video, and we got the beta and stuff like that, so there's stuff regards to that. But this video is mainly going to be about Warzone, and I mainly went into COD Next really like, I'd made a couple videos already saying kind of like my initial thoughts on what they needed to do. And one of the things I said is they really need to surprise us, give us a little bit of a wow factor that we actually have something to look forward to. And they kind of did that, but not really. And it really just fell flat. I don't know if it's out of touch or whatever the right thing is, or maybe my expectations were too high. I don't know. Regardless, I want to kind of just talk about my initial thoughts going into it, because I always kind of viewed it in either one of these ways, is that the perfect like storm of content that they could have given me and us for Warzone is a good game. I wanted nothing more than to be able to come back today after COD Next and make a video specifically about Warzone and do Warzone is back. Like, that would be like the perfect thing to be able to have as my title, as my thumbnail, is Warzone is back. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It's not even remotely close to back. It's not even, and it's not going to be for the foreseeable future, right? What they gave us in terms of information at COD Next is that, you know, season 1, when the integration normally happens, all the weapons are going to be integrated. Attack sprint is gone, which I like. I know some might disagree. Base movement speed is going to be increased to compensate for that. You still want attack sprint, you got to use sprinter. Health bars above the head, which they really didn't talk about. I don't know if they just put that out there to get kind of a feeling for it. I know people are really split on that. 5 attachments only. I think that's going to be good just for simplicity's sake, especially with some of the things they're going to be able to balance. Combat role with Mountaineer, cool. I don't think Mountaineer, if it doesn't get a buff, no one's going to be using Mountaineer. There's some perk changes, rebalancing stuff. We're going to get overkill by default. They're done with the wild cards so that you can equip your primary and secondary, which I think people are kind of split on that too, but people are generally fans of that. But one of the best things that they talked about, which is just going to go under the radar for several months probably, is their ability to tune attachments and modify weapons with full autonomy, which they've always kind of had to go through Treyarch or Sledgehammer or Infinity Ward. And these level of restrictions essentially were shackles on Raven to kind of hold back the game. And that doesn't give them like a full out. That's just on that specific niche, which we've complained about for like the past 3 years of an issue. Among many issues: floor loot, gulag not changing, map changes not happening frequently enough, events not feeling rewarding, and there's a lot of other stuff. We've done several videos on that, but the thing isn't really to harp on the old stuff that we've already talked about, but primarily the things that they talked about and why that's not going to satisfy me as a content creator, as a gamer for the next 7 months. It's just not going to. And I say 7 months because they kind of did some teasing on a lot of things, and like, it sounds like cool, here's the carrot on the stick, but it's like really 7 months out. We're going to get the new map for Resurgence. Cool, that's going to be the season 1. But I'll probably still prefer Rebirth Island. The map was fun to play. It was cool. I didn't get a ton of play time. It was versus Sweats. My first death is to Scump and Shotzi. Yeah, that's balanced, but whatever. That's just how it goes at these types of events. You're going to go against demons who literally played for a living. I've never done that. It's like, cool. Yeah, what about for big map? Oh, we're going to get a reused POI, which I'm sure takes a lot of work, and a brand new POI, which I don't know how impactful that's going to be. I know when we were during the live stream, essentially we switched to Verdansk to show off these POIs, and everyone was like, why are you on Verdansk? Like, what is this? And that's disappointing, because I was thinking it. Chat said it. I read it. I was saying it too. Everyone left the event feeling like a little deflated, because it's like, really? What am I supposed to do for 7 months? Like, I know it's not their job to care about what I'm going to make or not, but I want to have fun making content. And if you're not going to provide me the tools to make fun content, then the symbiotic relationship isn't working, right? I mean, I don't want to be those channels, you know, where their whole shtick is talking about how trash the game is every year, how everything about it, even their W's are trash. And like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. We'll talk a little bit more as we get in deeper to this. But they tease this Blackout stuff, and it's like, okay, they're marketing like this mode, but we get no clarifications on systems, how it'll differ from the original Blackout, that people have nostalgic feelings and you can go back and play, even though it's kind of hard to get a lobby on console. And then also, how is that going to differ from Warzone? And there's too many unknowns. And when people speculate about these things, people get overly optimistic, positive, when there's really nothing tangible to get positive and speculative in a good way about. It's really bad. There's no trailer, no screenshots, so that people can even nitpick and go, ooh, they're bringing back the grapple hook, or one of those types of things. How is it going to work with progression? And leaks suggest, we don't know if they're accurate, but they sound pretty accurate, that next year's title will be MW4. And in that title, it'll be on an updated engine, which really just means that they're going to drop PS4 and old gen off the roster. So they're not going to be held back from those limitations of those consoles. And a lot of people are thinking that GTA will force people to upgrade their consoles, because that's not on previous gen either. So you'll be on the newest hardware. And then they'll probably drop new consoles next year or whatever the heck. But whatever that is. And when they're going to switch to this new engine, there's a realistic expectation that basically everything's going to be scrapped. And they didn't really clarify that, because obviously it's so far out. But it's like, okay, so all your bundles you buy won't carry over to that. All right, cool. Even for Warzone, if they're going to do a new iteration of Warzone, that's like Warzone 3. And the weapons will have other things, and the movement will be like, we kind of want separate games, but then they do things that do kind of the same game, and then like you lose everything, and it's really like a weird shock that they kind of put themselves into. And it's unfortunate for some of the devs, because they just kind of got to deal with it and do their job. I know this doesn't really get talked about a lot, because you really only get to engage with developers when you go to these more private events, and you could talk to them one-on-one without someone looking over the shoulder, and they could be a little bit more candid. They're all trying to work hard. They're working their butts off to try and make the best game possible. But just like I said earlier, with the ability to have control and autonomy over the attachments without having to go to beg another studio to go ahead and try and change stuff, is just one type of restriction. And there's others, and then there's people above that, and then there's these other support studios that everything's got to go kind of hand in hand in work. And sometimes there's going to be ideas, good ones, that are held back, and bad ideas that are put to the front that people may disagree with. And it happens all the time. And they're just doing the best job they can individually, but there's people above that and other mechanics that just don't really get talked about enough. And it's unfortunate, because they're not in control of whatever ends up happening with this. They also tease the fact that they're going to do a refresh to Verdansk and Rebirth with no context. And on the same graphic, they show that the new Resurgence map is still going to be there when this happens, but that's not going to be updated. So they've already banked on them keeping the map for the next 7 months, unlike what they did with Area 99, which at least that's a little bit of a plus, but without any changes or modifications, improvements. And I get that those things take a while, but what the heck are they going to do with Rebirth that hasn't already done, or Verdansk that already hasn't been done? Like, we did a time change before we went to 1984, and that felt completely different. So maybe they stick with the Black Ops theme and they go to 2037 or 2035 rather, and we get wall jumping or something. I don't know, because even that part isn't included in all the surplus of 20, 30 plus changes that they're doing to Warzone. Wall jump still won't be there. And I think people are split on that, so maybe they got to decide on that. But what we played, it wasn't that way. And there's a lot of issues, that the fatigue part of it, but it also feels like Warzone has kind of become the forgotten mode, right? We got lack of POI changes, lack of meta changes, lack of like just map changes. We don't have any POI. There's no events. There's no red doors. Day-night cycle, Halloween events, like don't get used beyond the like that 1-3 week period. Train station, subway, things that we already had in Verdansk still aren't being utilized. The gulag is the exact same. All through Urzikstan, same gulag. So we've had the same gulag for like 18 months or something like that. Not even a different colorway. Like, oh, cool, it's kind of like grayish. Let's make it like orange or black with trim. Like, even that would be something. It'd probably get hate, but you know, it'd be something. And I think it's gotten to a point where the pendulum for Call of Duty has kind of swung. Before Warzone dropped, obviously multiplayer was the main focus. Zombies kind of felt like a supplemental mode, even though it got a lot of good content back in Black Ops 3 and on and off. But as soon as Warzone dropped, the pendulum hard swung the other way. And it's like Battle Royale, free to play is the main focus, even if it's at the detriment of multiplayer. And some people would argue zombies with plate systems or whatever the case is. And I think it's at the point where it's definitely swinging back. For me, I've always been a fan of multiplayer. I've played since COD 4 Modern Warfare. I played every iteration of COD. I didn't always play zombies on all of them, but multiplayer for sure. And then once BR came out, I was like, oh, this is fresh, nice, fun content to cover. SBMM's kind of a drag on multiplayer. That'll probably still be a thing. But it feels like the pendulum has kind of swung back, where as good as BO7 is going to be, even if you aren't a fan, it's going to be phenomenal. It's going to have tons of content. And the people who like it are just going to genuinely love it. And they're going to be supported for a while. Even with the fatigue of engagement, optimized matchmaking, or whatever. Same thing with zombies, I think, as well. I think they're getting tons of new maps. They're getting tons of content. But Warzone feels like it's now on the back burner. And this is kind of how a lot of content creators that kind of stuck with multiplayer felt when I started covering Warzone, and it was doing like well and easy to cover because they were just putting out W after W. I would talk to them and they'd be like, yeah, it feels like it's neglected. And I would feel the same too, especially on launch. I'm like, yeah, this is just not, it doesn't have the juice. Like they like scrapping these bits together to like just get by, because it's like the secondary mode now. And now it feels like it's the other way around. And this is even further reinforced by like all the context that we've had recently with COD Next, leaks, beta stuff that we're going to have this week, early access impressions from people like myself that got to play early about certain things. But we knew nothing about Warzone until COD Next. And it just feels neglected and kind of like hung out to dry. But then they tease like, oh, we're going to give you all these things, but like in 7 months. Like, that didn't really help me to make... You want me to make hate content like I hate Warzone for the next 7 months? That's not going to be fun. That's not something I'm going to commit to, and that's not something I'm going to do. So that's kind of where it's like, I was kind of hanging on there, hoping like something would come through, like a little bit more optimistic and positive. If you follow the channel, you know I'm generally more optimistic and positive. And definitely if you know, people that know me in person, that's just how it is. And it's like the game's just going to stay on life support. And they're really hoping until like this Blackout thing drops that they're just going to like pull the plug. And it's that moment of make or break that like if they're going to wake up or not. And I think I've been along for the ride long enough that I don't want to wait that extra 7 months to figure out that ride. Because their track record has made it so I'm less optimistic than I would ordinarily be. And that doesn't even get into the other issues, the bigger global issues of fatigue with weapon leveling, the anti-cheat, not having any kind of trust for the players to know that people in their lobbies aren't cheating. Even with Secure Boot and TPM 2.0, that's not going to solve everything. And even if the anti-cheat worked flawlessly and perfectly, it would still take like 9 months to a year before people go, yeah, we actually kind of got a good anti-cheat now. So unless it ever gets relatively close to the level of Valorant, it's going to be a pretty uphill battle on them to ever regain the trust. And for a little bit of perspective and reference, before Warzone ever came out, I don't know, I had like 200,000 subscribers. I had posted over 900 videos on multiplayer. So I'm very comfortable with the mode. I liked the mode. I enjoyed the mode. I just, at the time, you know, Warzone was taking his W's. I enjoyed Warzone. Like, what am I supposed to do? And it kind of worked out. A lot of people were able to jump on. COVID happened. It was a perfect storm. And so what does that mean for my plan, right? It's kind of like I'm going to, like, say goodbye to Warzone essentially for now. I might cover here or there with, you know, here's a slight info dump if anything major or significant happens. But when it comes down to it, it's basically like I'm going to give 0 F's about it until something really sparks my interest, because I want to make content on content I'm interested in. And I am significantly more interested in BO7's multiplayer, significantly interested in BO7's zombies, significantly interested in Battlefield 6's BR, not Battlefield 6. Not a fan, never been a fan of their multiplayer. I find it a little boring. If you disagree, that's fine. We can have different opinions on gaming. Play plenty of 30 other games a year on average, so I'm sure there's going to be some I like and dislike and vice versa. It's just kind of how it goes. I'm also infinitely more interested in Arc Raiders and what they're going to provide. And then still continuing to play all the other games that I want to play, that I regularly play. But when it comes to content, there's tons to cover that I can be positive about and enjoy with Black Ops 7, Zombies, Arc Raiders. Until I get more playtime in the Battlefield BR, it makes no sense for me to focus on Warzone and essentially just be bitching about Warzone. Like, it's at that point where I'm tired of bitching about Warzone. And although I think the devs are hard at work and that content will hopefully be good, I can't stay on this ride for 7 months just bitching about the game not having what I want because there's a carrot on the stick 7-8 months out. That's just not how it works. And even at the event, a lot of creators are in kind of the same boat. Many of them do actually like Battlefield, so they'll be probably posting that type of content. And many of them are interested in Arc Raiders or other games. So it's going to be a pretty big issue for Warzone, but that's not for me to worry about. So it'll be not goodbye to the channel. It's just going to be goodbye in terms of such an emphasis on Warzone, and maybe lean in more to the roots of the channel, which is multiplayer, and maybe even dabble a little bit in zombies and find out what this end game campaign's all about. I don't know. If you don't enjoy COD outside of Warzone, it's unfortunate. You're going to have a long wait. Despite all that, the game is probably in a decent state. If it dropped today and no one had ever heard of it or played it, it'd probably do phenomenally. But as many games do from being out as long as they have, they get that element of staleness that they just have to provide content, and they're not able to hold up to the level that the community needs. They're just not able to hold up to that level the community needs. So we should have the beta up. If you want to go ahead and check out live stream, I'll be streaming over on Twitch. Probably do a little bit of a review of Black Ops 7 and whatever we get access to in the beta. So we'll see you then. See you on the next one. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.